Hey everyone, and welcome to skillcapped's tier list for patch 1020. In typical Riot fashion, we've already seen a massive hotfix nerf hit the recently released Samira. With how big the changes were, you'd expect her to shoot down drastically in power, but that's not the case. She'll continue to wreak havoc on the Rift throughout 1020. We'll be seeing nerfs to a few annoying assassin picks like Kassadin and Katarina, while it looks like Urgot and Sion will be making their way into the jungle as they will be receiving some hefty buffs to beef up their jungle clears. What do you guys think about Riot trying to diversify the jungle pool? Last time they did it with champs like Garen, Darius, and Mordekaiser, it didn't really lead to anything long term. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below as we'd love to get your input. While you're down there, make sure to subscribe and turn those notifications on if you haven't already to stay up to date with our content and future tier lists like this one down the road. As always, our tier list has been created with the help of many challenger players, along with using up-to-date statistics to give you guys the best and most accurate tier list possible. Let's start things off by taking a look at the top lane. Maokai's been smashing his opponents around the Rift for the past few patches now, so Riot will be addressing this, making it a little easier for you to chop the tree down in 1020. The scaling on Maokai's Q-based damage is being hit, going from 70 to 250 down to 70 to 230. Considering this is Maokai's bread and butter trading ability that you max out first, and can spam a ton, 20 extra damage off at max rank will be noticeable. As a result of this change, we will be dropping Maokai down from the OP tier into S. Although this nerf will shave off a thin layer of bark, it won't be enough to cut him down entirely. He will still remain one of the best and most reliant top picks for the top lane. Maokai has held a 53% win rate, the highest for any top laner over the past few patches, so he's going to need a little more something to remove him from the forest. Qued is next up on the nerf list for top lane, as he will see a base magic resist nerf of 3 to make him slightly more vulnerable in those AP matchups. Considering the top lane meta consists primarily of AD bruisers at the moment, we don't think this change will drop the Cantankerous Cavalier off his mount for 1020. As a result, he will remain in the S tier. And then we have a few top laners receiving some buffs, the first one being Aatrox. The Darkened Blade will see his sword sharpened up a little, as the healing from his R will be increased, going from 50 scaling to 70% up to 50 scaling to 100%. Aatrox has been pretty heavily outclassed by other bruiser tops over the past few patches, so this buff will help him give a little boost to put him closer to their level. The buff makes his late game viability a bit stronger, but you do have to keep in mind that it only affects him in those later stages, as the healing from his ult will remain the same at level 6. Since Aatrox has been hovering in between A and B tier over the past couple patches, we will be moving him into A tier as a result of this change. A somewhat forgotten top lane pick, Illaoi will be getting a nice buff to her tentacle spawn cooldown. Instead of 20 scaling down to 12 seconds, it will now clock in at 20 scaling down to 8. 4 seconds less at max rank is nothing to bat an eye at, as she will now have the ability to slap her opponents around a lot more often. This will significantly improve her DPS in the later stages of the game and cause her teamfight viability to rise. Similar to Aatrox, we will be moving Illaoi out of B tier into A. Alright, that's all for the top lane changes. Let's now take a look at our complete top lane tier list for 1020. First up in our OP top picks, we have Darius, Urgot, Fiora, and Wukong. All 4 of these champs are very powerful solo carry options, as they have the ability to take over games and 1v9 really easily if they're ahead. Urgot is a very sleeper pick, especially for the lower elos, as he has started to eclipse a 54% win rate in silver and gold over the past few patches. Fiora gets an indirect buff in this patch due to the Maokai nerf. She's always been a great counter to the pick, and with Maokai's Q damage nerf, it makes it even easier for her to win. Our recommended low elo picks for top lane are Urgot, Kayle, and Malphite. All 3 picks are very simple to play and are reliable and effective in the current top lane meta. If you're wondering who you should be spending your ban on, we've got you covered as well. The formula we use at skillcapped when considering the best bans include champions' relative strength along with champion pick rates. Right now, Malphite, Darius, and Fiora are all very strong picks in the meta, and are played very often, so you'll get great use out of using your ban on one of them. A champion in need of some more recognition is Kayle, who slots into S tier for 1020. Ever since her changes a few patches back, Kayle has been performing exceptionally well, achieving around a 52% win rate since then. If you're looking for a good counter to the immobile melee tops like Garen, Darius, and Mordekaiser, then Kayle fits the bill. She does especially well into Mordekaiser as her win rate spikes to a whopping 56% in that matchup. Let's now make our way into the jungle. First up is a buff to Urgot as Riot is trying to give him some love to increase his jungle viability. His passive monster cap is being increased from 60 scaling to 360 up to 100 scaling to 360. His W damage is also getting buffed as it will now deal 50 minimum damage to monsters. It's fair to say Urgot's gank potential compared to most other junglers is rather lackluster, but one thing he does have going for him is an extremely strong early skirmish. Urgot stacks Conqueror faster than almost any champ in the game and has a good amount of consistent damage, which makes his ability to fight for early crabs very strong. Due to this factor, along with his clear becoming stronger, we expect Urgot to slot into B tier for 1020. Keep in mind that this is just an educated guess, as we have very few statistics regarding Urgot jungle in 1019, so our prediction could be off. We will be sure to keep you updated in the coming patch and place him more accurately once the data starts to trickle in. Another beefy meatball in Sion will be receiving a very similar change to Urgot, as his Q damage to monsters is being increased from 100 up to 150%. Like Urgot, Sion's early gank potential is pretty much non-existent, as he doesn't have a gap closer or a long-range CC ability he can use to find picks. His early skirmish is really lacking, especially against champions who have gap closers, as they will easily be able to dodge his Q and E damage and win out in those early scuttle fights. Unless Sion's clear becomes godlike with these buffs, we don't see him having as much success in the jungle as Urgot will. We will be placing him in C tier for the time being, but we'll once again keep you updated as more data rolls in for the next patch. Moving on to a few junglers being nerfed, we have Nunu first in line. You can expect him to continue rolling around the Rift as a top jungler for 1020, as his base armor is the only nerf he's receiving, going from 32 down to 29. This will make him slightly weaker in those AD matchups, and will make his clear a little less healthy. But the fact that he holds a 53% win rate in 1019 leads us to believe he will still remain a top tier pick for this patch. Nunu won't be moving anywhere as he will still remain in the OP tier. Karthus is also on the nerf list and will see his base stats reduced as his base armor will drop from 20 down to 18, while his base HP regen will actually be increased by a minuscule 0.1%. Like Nunu, Karthus won't be moving anywhere on our tier list as he will slot into S tier for another patch. With all the jungle changes out of the way, here is our jungle tier list. In the OP tier, we have Hecarim leading the charge, followed by Fiddlesticks and, as previously mentioned, Nunu. If all you care about is that sweet freelo in 1020, then Hecarim should be top priority. He's been such a busted pick for the past few patches, and will continue to stomp on his opponents for at least another patch. Featured in our 3 best elo picks for the patch are Vi, Hecarim, and Shyvana. Vi has been dominating low elo ever since her buffs a while back, and Shyvana is an amazing scaling jungler who works really well in the lower brackets where games tend to last longer and the early game isn't as important. The 3 best bans include Hecarim, Kha'Zix, and Evelynn. All of these champs are picked at an extremely high rate and are very annoying to play against if they get ahead due to their easy to land burst damage. Banning one of them out should save you a solid chunk of your mental health as you hit the Rift in 1020. Moving on to the mid lane, most mid mains can finally rejoice as we'll be seeing less of the Voidwalker in 1020. Kassadin is getting a pretty meaningful nerf to his early laning phase as the magic shield from his Q is being reduced from 60 scaling to 160 down to 40 scaling to 160. It's nice to see Riot target this part of his kit. Fleet Footwork, Taste of Blood, Doran's Shield, and his Magic Shield has just given him the ability to free farm early and scale into the late game monster that he is. This will make his laning phase much more punishable and give AP champions more of a chance to gain some advantages early on. Kassadin has been on the edge of OP tier over the past, but with this change he will be rift walking down into the S tier. Another snowbally mid lane assassin will be hit for 1020, as Katarina will see her passive damage AD ratio reduced from 100 down to 75%. She's been dominating the solo queue mid lane meta for a while now, and her ability to snowball with her 1 item spike in Gunblade has made her a top tier pick to climb with. Considering she's had upwards of a 52% win rate over the past, this nerf won't completely remove her from the meta. We will be moving Cat from the OP tier down to S for this patch. The blue man in the mid lane will receive a buff to his Q damage. Rise Q will now be dealing 10 more damage at all ranks for 1020. Our analysts don't expect much at all out of this change, due to Rise holding an abysmal win rate of 46% in 1019. His pick rate is also very low, hovering 2%, which really tells you how weak he is since only Rise mains are playing him at the moment. A change like this may bump his win rate up to 47.5, but nowhere near where it would need to be to make him a worthwhile pick to climb with. We will be moving Rise from D tier into C tier, but would still highly suggest you shy away from the pick until he gets a few more buffs. Looking at our OP tier for mid, we have Nocturne, Fizz, Rumble, and Talon. Nocturne, Fizz, and Talon have all been staple OP picks for a while now, but Rumble is the one who has been on the rise since his buff in 1018. His Q damage was buffed by 25 at max rank, which has made his already strong bully power and skirmishing even stronger. He's been roasting his opponents since those buffs, as his win rate jumped from 51 up to 53% throughout every elo bracket. If you're looking for an extremely strong early game, roaming, snowballing mid lane pick, then look no further than the Furball for 1020. The 3 low elo picks of the patch are Fizz, Malzahar, and Annie. All these champions revolve around finding picks with their very strong ultimates, which are great tools especially for low elo, to where players will be out of position way more often. A few champs worth a ban this patch are Zed, Yone, and Fizz. They fit our criteria perfectly when determining these best bans, as all of them have drastically high pick rates and are some of the best picks in the meta. If you're getting tired of having to deal with these annoying mid picks like Katarina, Yone, Yasuo, and Kassadin, then considering adding the Croc to your champ pool. Renekton holds a positive win rate against all 4 of those champs, and even wins more than 55% of the time against Kassadin, Yone, and Yasuo. His point-and-click stun combined with his sustained and consistent damage make mobile champs like Yasuo an easy snack. The Butcher of the Sands will be sitting on top of the S tier for 1020, ready to give you some sweet freelo. The lone ADC change for 1020 is Varus. His E damage is being increased from 50 scaling to 210 up to 60 scaling to 220, a 10 damage increase at all ranks. His ultimate will see a buff as well. The cooldown will be reduced from 130 scaling down to 70 to 120 scaling down to 60. Varus has been in a really terrible spot for a while now due to the immense amount of nerfs he's been hit with throughout Season 10. His play rate has even plummeted to sub 1% due to his win rate dropping below 46%. In the past few patches, he's been by far the weakest ADC. So with these changes, it should give him a little more viability. Our analysts expect you'll have an easier time piercing your opponents, as Varus will rise from the grave and make his way into B tier. The OP tier has had a pretty big shakeup over the past few patches due to many ADCs getting nerfed. Right now we have 4 ADCs on top with MF, Jhin, Ashe, and Samira. Riot did it again. Another OP release champion, and this one seems to even be on another level than the rest. Samira's synergy with aggressive CC supports allows her to style on her opponents with ease, and with 3 items you can 1v9 better than any ADC in the game. Samira's ban rate currently sits at 30% and rising, so if you find the chance to get your hands on her for this patch, then don't even hesitate. To make things even easier for you, we've already uploaded our ultimate guide to Samira, so be sure to check it out after this video. We do want to quickly mention that Karthus is now in S tier. Although he's not played much, he's super strong in the ADC role when your team is lacking AP damage, since he certainly provides that and is super easy to play. The best low elo ADC champs at the moment are Misfortune, Jhin, and Ashe. All 3 are very simple to play and are extremely effective even if you aren't snowballing, due to the amount of utility Ashe and Jhin provide and the raw damage from MF. If you're not looking to dabble with the Desert Rose for 1020, then be sure to add her to your ban list. If you're looking to pick up Samira, then Ashe and Caitlyn are 2 very good bans. Despite both these champs getting nerfed over the past few patches, they still hold very high pick rates and win rates for solo queue, which gives your ban a lot of value if used on them. An ADC pick who's been rotting in the sewer for most of Season 10 has finally started to see the light. Twitch received a few buffs to his E and ultimate back in 1018, and with ADCs like Lucian, Ashe, Caitlyn, and Senna being nerfed recently, he gets quite a bit stronger. We have already seen the pocket pick pulled out at Worlds, which should lead to a steady increase in play rate as the patches progress. Twitch will be moving up into A tier for this patch. However, he's not far off from squeaking his way into S if a few more changes go his way in the coming patches. An AP carry in the bot lane incinerating the meta and featured in our S tier is Ziggs. He's one of the few picks who can look to match the early shove and lane pressure of a Caitlyn or Ashe, and with teleport he can actually end up bullying out a lot of traditional ADCs. He also currently holds a 55% win rate against Samira. So if you're feeling bold and don't want to ban her, then you can look to bomb her out instead with the Hexplosive Expert. Lulu has been dominating the support meta for what seems like an eternity, so Riot will be tuning her down. Her W attack speed is being hit, going from 25 scaling to 45% down to 20 scaling to 35%. As much as we appreciate Riot nerfing Lulu, in reality this change won't really push the purple Yordle and her picks too far from the tier list. Lulu will drop from our OP tier down into S, remaining one of the go-to support picks, meaning you'll have to deal with that awful laugh spam for yet another patch. Braum has lost a lot of his gains over the past little while, and in turn his results on the Rift have really suffered. Riot will be buffing Braum back up for 1020, giving him a nice damage buff to his Q by adding 15 damage to it at all ranks, and in addition reducing the mana cost of his Q by 10 at all ranks. This will actually make poking with his Q feel more rewarding and should give his laning phase a little more power if you can land it consistently. He won't reach top tier level after these buffs, but they are a step in the right direction to bring the big man back into viability. He can wave goodbye to Karma, Set, and Tahm Kench as he'll be making his way out of the C tier into B tier for 1020. Let's now move on to looking at the complete tier list for support. In the OP tier we have Blitzcrank, Leona, Pantheon, and Soraka. Pantheon has been quite an interesting pick to watch throughout Season 10, as he went from being a very niche support pick to one of the most played and strongest in just a few patches. Once people began to realize how broken his early game all-in threat is, along with his roaming potential in skirmish, he's been a go-to pick. The amount of raw damage he provides allows him to solo carry the laning phase, even if his ADC isn't the best, and then transition that lead into other lanes at level 6 with his semi-global ult. Our analysts have chosen Swain, Leona, and Pantheon as the 3 best low elo picks for 1020. All 3 have insane pick potential and kill threat early on, so their ability to snowball and extend that lead makes them great to climb through the ranks fast. The best bans for this patch are Pantheon, Lulu, and Morgana. We already mentioned earlier why Pantheon is deserving of this spot, whereas Lulu and Morgana are played a lot and do an amazing job at shutting down any aggressive support, making them worth banning. A very sleeper OP pick we want to highlight for support is Maokai. He did get a nerf to his Q damage this patch, so that pushes him out of OP tier. However, he still remains in S and is still a great counter to so many meta supports. His point and click route allows him to peel off those champs really easily, and it also makes his gank assist and early kill threat some of the best for any support in the game. Alright guys, be sure to smash that subscribe button and let us know in the comments below if you want us to keep up with the tier lists each patch. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.